16-hour days, most of the time, 7 days a week. You got to see things develop very quickly with this. Every piece of it was enjoyable. Some of it was more tedious. This is the Corvair 120 horsepower rated engine. Went with a thicker aluminum and hinged it.
Welcome to the Experimental Aircraft channel. I'm Brian, and today I am in Adel, Georgia at Azalea Aviation, and I'm going to talk to David Tillema, who just recently finished his Zenith CH750 Cruzer, Corvair powered. Coming up right now. Thank you to our channel sponsors, Wicks Aircraft Supply, AviNation Youth Publication, and Aero Adventure Amphibious Seaplanes. Maybe what other aircraft did you consider, and how did you land on the Cruzer?
Well, when I was considering my next project, my first one was a KR2, actually a KR2S. And I didn't want to do another composite build. I wanted something, what I thought was going to be faster to finish, because time was of essence. So I was very interested in the Kid Fox, the latest Kid Fox. With Trent Palmer, all his videos got my attention on a Kid Fox. Took me a long time to find and locate a person in Houston who had a Kid Fox to fly, but on the north side of Houston there was one. I flew in it, my fiance flew in it, we both enjoyed the plane, but it wasn't the fit I wanted. I didn't really like the flying characteristics of it compared to the Zenith. I thought the Zenith was much more forgiving, much more Cessna-like, more my style. It was an easy decision. The bubble doors on this really cinched it because there's so much space in there. You're not going to be crowded. It's very roomy, very comfortable.
So Dave, from taking delivery from Zenith of your kit up until this point we're talking right now, about how long did it take you to get this built? And did you get the full kit or components?
Well, I'm going to backstep just a bit there. We, at the time she was my girlfriend, we went to Mexico, Missouri, built the rudder. She built one side of the rudder, I built the other side of the rudder. So we had that experience together. Ordered the kit. I think it took about 3 months to get a complete kit, the full kit. I wanted everything at once, and from the time I started till the time the plane flew was, I believe, 420, somewhere around 420 days, I think it was, 424. My goal was to do it in 365 or less, but had to deal with paint, had to learn how to do painting, had to learn all the issues with that. Engine installation, there's just a lot to learn, but I stuck with it. 16-hour days most of the time, 7 days a week, and you get what you put in. So
you basically made this your full-time job this past little over a year to get this done.
Correct. Okay. Yeah, this I retired shortly after I started to build, probably within a few weeks to a month. I realized for health reasons, I needed to finish this quickly. So I retired from my job and went into this full time. The fuselage, the airframe, was under 500 hours to build. It's all the little minutia that adds up, that takes a lot more time. I'm probably closing in on 3,000 hours on this airplane in less than 450 days. What
did you decide to power your Cruzer with, and why did you choose that option?
Okay, good question. That was a very tough call. There's a lot of very good engines. Well, what I think are good engines out there. The UL, the Viking, the Corvair being one, even a Continental Lycoming. All the name brands are out there. I chose this particular engine for it being a 6-cylinder. I wanted a 6-cylinder direct drive. I was trying to stay away from reduction drive. I flew in some Rotax. I just didn't care for the way they sounded with the gears. They just didn't work for me. So with that, I stayed away from gear reduction drive and decided I wanted direct drive, which left me with Continental, Lycoming, UL, Corvair, name a few. And This has 6 cylinders, the other ones are 4. The other ones may have a little bit of weight advantage, but the 6-cylinder to me would give me a more smooth running engine. And in the case of a cylinder dropping out, I've still got 5 cylinders versus a 4-cylinder dropping a cylinder. I may not have enough to even stay at altitude. This particular engine I built with Bill at his home together. We test ran it here. Everything was fine. Somewhere around 8 to 10 hours, we had a valve seat drop out on us right after takeoff, and we didn't have 6 cylinders, but it climbed. It got us in the pattern, got us back on the ground, pulled the head off. He machined a new seat into it, and we had it back up and flying that evening.
And which, there's several different horsepower options I understand for these engines. Which option did you go with on yours?
I chose the 120. I wanted something that would get me off the ground as soon as possible for grass strips, tight landings. On cruise, I think 100 horsepower on this particular plane, or even a 110, would still get you in the same cruise range, because at 120 horses, I've had this plane up to 125 miles per hour, but it cruises much more nicely, much more comfortably around 105, maybe 110. At 100, it's a Cadillac, but at 125, you can tell that you're pushing this plane at its edge. And so you don't really need those many horses unless your goal is to get off the ground quick.
How many hours do you have on it now?
This build currently has right at 40 hours. We finished the 40 hours on my last trip up here, so it's ready to fly away. It's fun to fly. It's a dream, actually. It's super easy. I didn't think I was going to like the Y stick in the middle. I thought I was going to end up doing dual sticks. I'm glad I didn't. The extra space is much appreciated. The stick in the middle doesn't bother you at all. You adapt very quickly, and then when you're up at altitude, smooth air, it flies itself. You're just barely touching the controls, so you don't need the stick between your legs all the time bothering you anyway. With this 120, it climbs very quickly, although I don't climb out at max climb angle. I'm still very cautious with it, so I'm climbing out about 70 miles an hour, so I don't really know the true climb rate of this plane yet. The stall speed, 38 miles an hour is what we get on this one. My particular plane, at a full stall, engine run and full stall, will bank a little, or will brake to the right without any rudder. If you step on a rudder, you won't have an issue, but without rudder, it'll bank to the right. On final, I still come in 70 on final, flare at 50, and then I just glide the whole runway down. I know it'll go a lot slower, but I'm not in a hurry to find out what the slowest is. It's not a stall, it's a cruiser. I've got a runway. And pretty much every landing I've had to do here was a crosswind landing, so I wanted to carry extra speed. And the one landing I did with the flaps, I floated a lot. So I was like, yeah, we'll have to find something more direct in the wind before we start playing with the flaps. Flaperons more that way. Every aspect of it was enjoyable. If you were working on a fuselage, you were excited to be working on a fuselage. If you're working on a wing, you got to see things develop very quickly with this. So I was really enjoying it. And as soon as you got one piece done, you put it away into a room and you moved on to the next piece. So as far as the airframe, every piece of it was enjoyable. Some of it was more tedious. The inside of the cabin, the seats, the adjustable seats, that part was more tedious. You didn't see the results as quickly as you did the wings. The wings you would have done in a week. Those were easy. Any of the flight surfaces were easy. So I wouldn't say anything was exceptionally stood out on the airframe itself. The places that slowed me down and probably gave me the most frustration was the painting. But the time it takes to prep, to paint, Yeah, I won't do a paint job again. That was too
So it wasn't the
time-consuming.
system necessarily. You enjoyed the Stewart systems once you figured it out. It was more of the painting process. You mean?
Yes. That'd be more true. I have done solvent-based paint, and during this process, I was very tempted to go to solvent-based paint because it's a faster flash-off process. But it's also stinks a lot. It's much more abusive to your lungs and everything else. So I stayed with the Stewart system, which is a great system. And that's the part I have no problem. It's the time it takes to paint. And I probably saved, after I bought everything to do the paint booth, and I may have saved $3,000, but I added probably 3 months to my time. Mm-hmm. And I wanted this done in a year. If I'd paid somebody to paint it, this had flown in under a year. I didn't have a problem with it. I went along with what their plans were. I used their match hole drilling, and I just worked it around very smooth and carefully.
Did you start from like the center, the leading edge, out to the trailing, or is there any specific order you go to riveted to get that to form?
I started from the inboard, up, down, and back. I had very small gaps right on the edges, but you're going to. I didn't have anything that was extremely obtrusive. And once I put I had this car, I actually had a local vinyl store put this wrap on here for me. And once they got done, I had very small gaps here that I filled with black silicone, so it covers up very well. The fuel tanks had, originally they had the side-mounted level sending units. I was never comfortable with it. I had drilled the holes up and they were already mounted, but I was never comfortable with it for leaking potential. So I had those welded up, and then I mounted the sending units on top of the tank. And the blisters, I don't know if you can see from here, but Azalea built me some blisters to go over the sending units because they stick about maybe an inch or so above the wing skins. The fuel vents that are underneath the wings, I had read on forums that when you were taxiing and turning, that fuel would come out of the overflows. So after the first time I did that, and it poured out. It doesn't just come out, it poured out. Drilled those up, or tapped those, plugged them, and then made these ram vents on top of the fuel caps that Croak has online to show you how to do, and those worked out great. Had to modify the bend a little bit and the cut a little bit to get both tanks to feed pretty much equally, and now they do. So that all worked out really well. On the weights, on the counterweights that you get, there's an excessive amount of steel here, and you will be cutting, trimming, shaving something off these. Well, I didn't want to cut off the front. I wanted to get as much weight off as possible. If you cut off the front, you're changing the fulcrum and you're not getting the weight. So I drilled 3 holes in the back, virtually all the way to the tips, and then smoothed off the back. Had a buddy of mine, a MIG or a TIG, all the holes closed, and then we just smoothed them up and painted them. I reckon we probably saved 2-3 pounds of weight just drilling them out this way versus shaving them off the front. It wasn't the easiest part, but it turned out very nice. Zenith should redo these. These are way too heavy. Totally unnecessary. You're never going to make so much out of balance that you're going to need that much weight. Okay, on the doors and the plans, they have you leave a lip over the edges. I'm sorry, they have you leave a lip over the edges of the frame. Probably somewhere around 1/4 inch, maybe a few eighths, but still there's a lip. To me, that invited something to catch on it, chip it, and cause a crack. So to reduce that risk, excuse me, all my edges have been polished smooth and even with the framework, and to compensate for this lip, which I believe was just strictly meant for keep the air out. You've got a trim, a seal across the bottom, which this matches up to, so there's no issues there. And on the top section up here, I just put some door foam, which seals the top. I used a Dremel tool to melt the holes. On all my plastic, it's always been melted, never drilled. And I've got 40 hours, I don't have a single crack anywhere.
Why the stealth look on your plane?
Well, multiple reasons. One, it looks cool. But I live in Texas. Texas is hot, and I wanted to keep the heat out of the cabin as much as possible. To me, this was designed as a day VFR, strictly a day VFR, and by tinting the windows all, or having the windows all darkened like this, it takes that that want to fly at night away from me. Takes it out of my thought process, because that's dark. Even with the lights, it's hard to taxi at night. Another reason I did it was when you're inside and you're trying to look at your avionics, your screens, when you're looking through sunglasses, it will darken your screens. Now you're looking outside, it's fine, but when you look inside, it makes it hard to see your screen. I didn't want that contrast back and forth, back and forth. So by having it this dark, I don't have to wear sunglasses. This is the Corvair 120 horsepower rated engine by Azalea. The serial number on this is TEXXAS, 2 X's, just like my plane. So that's my custom engine. This engine has the front bearing that's split, which the seal, initially the seal had a drip on it. During the break-in period, Bill talked to a client or a person, I'm not sure who it was, that was in the marine business. And he mentioned that since it's a reverse spinning prop, you need a reverse lined seal, which this marine system had. So I ordered that, we put it in, no drips, perfect seal. So I hate leaks. So that got rid of that leak. I painted my engine white because I hate leaks. I want to find them, I want to fix them. The only other leak I had to deal with was on the breather, which you got to deal with on these. So I put a catch can on it, which at this point seems to be doing very well. Don't have enough hours on it to tell definitively if it's the perfect fix, but it knocked the oil down tremendously. On these engines, my understanding is that they've been having a problem with all the avionics being able to pick up the RPM of the propeller, finding a spot that will do a proper pickup. Some of them will pick up at a low RPM but not a high RPM, and we were having that issue with this one. Over the period of time of trying different sensors and whatnot, Bill came up with a simple solution of drilling a hole in the stator here and putting a simple screw into it, and then he put a sensor just off the tip of it, and now it runs on points, electronics, runs like a champ, runs smooth, no bouncing, no juddering, nothing. Other than that, I love my carbon fiber. Carbon fiber looks so trick. This thing cools like a dream. No issues. I haven't had a single issue cooling with this engine on the cylinders or on the oil cooler. Not a single issue.
Who made you these seats? They look really, really comfortable.
All right, well, you got me on the spot on that one. These seats are made by the same person that made Mark Pensenstadler seats for his Corvair or his Cruzer.
Okay. I think we all know him by now. Yeah.
Wonderful seats. They're more of a Jeep interior, like a canvas with a cooling, breathing type insert in there. Wonderful design, wonderful stitching, great support. Controls are smooth on pitch. Bank, you have a little bit of resistance because of the servos, but once you're flying, you don't notice it. And then, of course, once you're at altitude and you put the autopilot on, you absolutely don't notice it.
While I'm looking out here, I see something very different in your cockpit here, that your seat belts are in a different position and there's more of them. So you can tell me a little bit about what you did there.
Okay. I personally didn't want a single strap. I wanted at least a 4-point. So I saw what Jan Angerfelder had in his plane, and so I ordered this seatbelt setup configuration mounts from Viking Engines. Very happy with it. They give you plenty of length on the webbing. These have to be cut and trimmed and sewn again to get rid of. I got too much excess. But Tamika, that one's caught. But it's a Tamika 4-point. They do keep you in the seat. I'm very happy with those. This panel is separated from the controls, from the throttle, from the mixture, which makes this very rigid over here. The previous one was, when you pressed on it, it was flexing. I didn't care for that. So we went with a thicker aluminum and hinged it where it's much easier to work on the electronics, which we're currently doing. So with this, easy in, easy out, very fast, very quick. I went with this fuel selector, which has left, right, and both. I normally will fly it on both. For my cross country, I'm going to fly it one wing down to 3 gallons, then fly the next wing probably closer to 6, and then land, and then verify that all my calibrations prior to were correct and that I do truly have 3 gallons in there, and then we'll start flying accordingly afterwards. Okay, this the reason I got 2 batteries is because I like the way that Viking Engines did their battery setup. And after doing research online on batteries, these 2 batteries will give more cold cranking amps than a single battery. And by doing that, this engine lights up fast. The mechanics that are here have told me numerous times that this is the fastest starting Corvair that they've seen.
So that's our quick tour through Dave's just completed Cruzer here. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
Obviously you flew from Texas all the way to here, and you're getting ready to fly out of here tomorrow. So
hopefully,
if there's other people that are building Zenith aircraft and Cruzers in particular, if anybody had any it's tickling the hair in my legs. There's gnats here.
Drive you crazy.
If anybody had any specific questions that they wanted to ask you, is there any way they could reach out to you to ask those questions on your build?
Absolutely. I've got a Facebook page called Texxas 750 Cruzer with 2 X's. You can contact me there anytime through Facebook or Messenger. I'm happy to help.
Excellent. Well, thanks again. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming out.
If this is your first time here, I'd like to invite you to subscribe right now. And hit the like button on this video and the bell notification for future videos. If you have already subscribed, thank you very much for helping me build this channel and to continue to reach more people about experimental light sport and ultralight aviation. I invite you to head over right now to wicksaircraft.com to check out a variety of tools available to you right now to be able to build the aircraft. Check out Wicks Aircraft also for all kinds of aviation related supplies that you may need for your aircraft. And remember guys, just build it.